Hi there, and welcome back to another Papetti Math YouTube video tutorial, where I'm going to be teaching you, yes you, Algebra 1. And in this video, we're going to be taking a look at lesson number 3, square root and cube root functions. It says, the shifting and transformation rules you learned in lessons 1 and 2 will not only apply to absolute value functions, but to all kinds of functions. Today, we're going to look at graphs of square root and cube root functions and see how shifting and transformation rules apply to these types of functions as well. So in exercise number 1, it says to consider the function y is equal to the square root of x. Fill in the table based on your previous knowledge of square roots. So let's start with the ones we know, because I'm not too sure about the square root of -1. But the square root of 0, what times what, will give me 0, and that's going to be 0. Okay. And then the square root of 1. What's the square root of 1? Well, what times what is 1? Well, that's going to be 1. The square root of 4 is what is going to go here. And what times what will give me 4? And that's going to give me a 2, because 2 times 2 is 4. And what times what will give me 9? And the answer to the square root of 9 is 3. Now go ahead and try to figure out what times what, two of the exact same numbers multiplied by each other to get -1. Pause the video if you need a couple more seconds. Okay, now that you've either unpaused the video or you have an idea of the answer, it's not possible to take the square root of -1. And the reason being is that you have to have two of the exact same numbers that you multiply by each other to get the answer to a square root. So now, if we have two of the exact same numbers and both numbers are positive, a positive times a positive number is going to be a positive. If both of the exact same numbers are negative, then negative times a negative is going to also give you a positive. So there's no way to arrive at a negative answer when taking a square root. So we're going to write that that's undefined. And if you went ahead and you put the square root of -1 in your calculator, it's going to say error. It's going to display an error message, or it's going to say undefined based on the type of calculator you're using. So we put that it's undefined to take a square root of a negative number. So what do we notice about the square root of -1? Just as we said, it is undefined. It's not possible to take the square root of a negative number. So now I want you to graph the function in your calculator. And what do you notice about the domain of the function? Okay, so when you graph that function in your calculator, whatever type of calculator you're using, you're going to go to either y equals, or you're just going to type in y equals and square root of x to follow. And you're going to get a graph that looks like the points in this table, where it starts at 0, 0, and then you have the point 1, 1, then you have the point 4, 2, 9, 3, 16, 4, because the square root of 16 is 4. And how those are connected right there is with a smooth curve that looks like that. And you'll also notice that this line extends forever in that direction, but it stops right here and doesn't go any further left. Because again, if we went further left, we would have a square root of a negative number, which we just saw wasn't possible. So what do we notice about the domain of this function? The domain is, and we could do interval notation or compound inequality. So using interval notation, we could say that it starts at 0 and it goes to infinity, because we start at 0 as an x value and it goes on forever to the right. So the domain is from 0 to infinity, and it includes 0. So this is called the parent function of a square root graph. Just as we had the parent function of an absolute value graph, the parent function of a square root graph also has a vertex at 0, 0, a starting point, if you will, at 0, 0. And it continues as a smooth curve from there. Now, if this video was helpful in graphing your first square root graph and seeing why you can't take the square root of a negative number, please give this video a thumbs up, and you're now ready to click on the video link for exercise number 2. Thank you for watching.